There we go. Yeah, it was set on my iPhone camera. So my iPhone camera was facing
down.
Yeah, fucking up.
Yeah. One of the main reasons people have always loved Apple is it just gets the fuck out of the way. Yeah. And right at the moment, they're dead set because their user base generally is less technical now. They're trying to do all this shit for people.
Yeah. But why would they think that was a good idea? That
Because regardless how good the camera is in your laptop, the camera in anything from like an iPhone 13 onwards is far, far better. Who wants that? I don't know. Once again, we've talked about it. The global fuck off button.
Yeah.
It's a necessity for tech. No one's brave enough to put one in there.
But yeah, it's just, I did have a moment where I was like, Apple's just sexy. Dude, guy, yeah, I know we're lamenting at the moment about get stuff not doing it properly. But I had a moment where I had to sign a document. And they said, "Oh, you can sign it digitally."
Mm.
And they said, "Do you have a Mac?" Yep. And I went, "Actually, I do." And they went, "Yeah, okay, we'll go on there, go to like sign, like annotate, or there's a sign button." And when you open the doc, and I was like, "Okay," and then it said create a signature. So then I was like, okay. So it had three options. It had sign on the laptop, so use the mouse to like draw a signature, that's just fucking hard. So then I saw another one. It was like, oh, camera. So you could sign your signature on a bit of paper, then it takes a photo of it.
Yep.
And then I went, oh, there's another one for for phone. So I clicked the iPhone tab. And then it opened up on my phone, like a touch, like the pad. And then I just signed on my phone, and it instantaneously showed up on it. And I was like, oh, like just the moment of like, oh, yeah.
I think that increased sexiness is why people let Apple get away with also being more annoying than they used to be. It's kind of like a crazy girlfriend situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 100% what it is. You're like you're hot and sexy, but
yeah, you got complications.
Yeah, just
right. Well, this is the show. We might as well just keep going. So, Oliver Hunter, how you going, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. We're back. We're we're down the line, as they say in the biz.
A little bit more tech talk there for people who thought, oh, have I just tuned into a comedy show or a tech show?
Yeah. By the way, a tech show where only one half of the show has any idea what they're talking about.
But like all tech shows, we're not sure which half.
Yeah. I mean, I just described Apple as sexy, so that just shows you my realm of tech knowledge. So
I think if you're going to pick one word, that's probably the word they would like most.
Yeah.
So
I just when it happened, I've had a couple of things happen now since I've had a Mac, an iPhone, and now I have an Apple Watch. I've gone full fruit company, and it's just all connected, and you have weird moments where all I could think of is just ooh, like
the only difference between like Apple and a normal cult, they want all your money like every other cult, but their obsession is keeping you alive, not keeping you borderline on the verge of death. That's the only difference. Like they want you to be cool and be good. Otherwise, they just want all the cash.
Yeah. And I was like, on the Apple Watch, I noticed, and I love how we're giving one of the biggest brands and companies in the world more for just free advertising.
Yes.
We don't have any Apple sponsorships.
We haven't advertised our own show yet, but Apple, thumbs up.
Yeah, but and like the Apple Watch, they even have on it, like on all the exercise options, they have like I can set it as like push, so that the watch knows I'm in a wheelchair, rather than like say a Fitbit. When I had a Fitbit, it was like it counted your steps. So I would get to the end of the day and having done allegedly I'd done 12,000 steps some days.
The only alert you would ever get from Fitbit is, Oliver, did you accidentally leave your Fitbit in the clothes dryer? It appears to be spinning around a lot.
Yeah. That's how I got the steps up.
That's how you got them up.
Yeah.
Bloody Fitbit, always accusing people of cheating. That's why I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
So I just want to know, because I saw you've just done some trial shows.
Yeah.
And 2 questions. Do you feel like with the trial show, just to keep this in the tech realm, your comedy festival trial show, for those who don't know what we're talking about, has all of this Apple coming into your world, like just an overabundance of fruit, has it helped prepping this show, or has it been a distraction from the show?
It's helped because, again, with how it's all instantaneously connected and everything, the Mac, the phone, put notes in the phone and they're in the laptop. You put notes in the laptop, so like dot points for bits or ideas. And if they're in the notes section, the Apple inbuilt note section, then I know that they'll be in the phone. And stuff like little weird things like that. And and then even like Nick Schuler, who I did the split bill shows with, he recorded one set for me because I forgot to hit record on my phone, and then he airdropped the set to me, a half an hour audio clip, and you're like, that's another moment. I'm like, again, I know I was very late to come back to the fruit company, Josh.
Yes, talking about pushing, you needed a lot of pushing.
Yes, yeah, I did, and you got me over the line. And if you're out there and you're wondering about Apple if you've been part of the fruit company and you've left like I did, or you've never been part, I reckon airdrop is enough to get you over the line.
Well, firstly, my nipples are semi-erect right now, but it's the number one feature as someone who spends part of my week doing audio production, whether for my own stuff or for other people. The ability to airdrop might be the number one feature on Apple that I love. Yeah,
because that, I said, half an hour audio clip, that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And then Nick was able to just airdrop it to me. And if he didn't have an iPhone or I didn't have an iPhone, there would have been like
the uploads and the downloads and the links and
it would have been, it's too big to text it to you, email it to you, so I'm gonna have to, fly to the moon, set up the satellite, ping it back off that.
Which, just knowing Nick Schuler, doesn't sound like something he'd be up for.
Nah, he'd be like, "Can I do it right now?" And no. Okay, well,
sorry.
Yeah, you're just gonna have to figure it out, champ. Nick's a lovely man.
Friggin' last time I saw him, absolutely on fire.
Yeah,
one of the funniest people I saw last year, I reckon, in 2023. He'd be top 5 funniest sets I watched.
Yeah, I've said this to him throughout the 2 shows we did. I think he's a guy I've seen in the last few years, where once he starts his set, if the audience and him are in the same pocket, if he's in the pocket and they're with him, it's one of the hardest you'll see anyone kill in comedy.
Yeah,
and killing means doing well in comedy. If you're not familiar with the comedy lingo, but yeah, he's a guy that once if he's on, he's just destroying. And I don't wrong, we were both laughing because he struggled on the Sunday show, the first show, the trial show we did. He felt he struggled, and he thought he had a bunch of gear that was going to work, and he was in classic comedy when you're trying to build the show. You're like, this hasn't worked out to the level I wanted to. Now I have about 2 minutes. But then he had a better set the next show. But yeah, once he's on, and if the audience are picking up what he's putting down, yeah, good night. It's just a roof lifting.
Well, that show in Berwick of yours, he actually did blow the roof off.
Yeah.
I was like, he's killing as hard as anyone I've seen for 15 minutes. Like every joke pretty much got an applause break. It was, and what I loved most was when I told him afterwards about how good I thought it was, even though we'd met before and we've kind of interacted online, so it wasn't like a complete stranger. He didn't want a bar of it because I think he thought that he fucked up one tiny little bit of one joke and that didn't go as well as what he was hoping. I'm like, oh, that's great. Now I like you even more.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we had a good time. The trial shows, I think for both of us, I think for me, well, for both of us, but for me in particular, I felt, the idea, the idea of the show is there. There's enough material there. It's just sorting it out, and I go through these moments of like, I don't have enough, and then you do the trial shows, and you're like, oh, I've got too much, and I wasn't able to do this bit. So does that even work? But then this, so yeah, it's still, I mean, still a lot of doubt, and you have the classic, artists like, oh, it all sucks, throw it all out, start again. But yeah, it was a good time, and it was just great to be able to. We did about that half an hour, 35 minutes each, and in regular spots, like I don't get to do that, and like we when we're just doing spots, whether Melbourne, Wagga, Albury, you don't get to do 15, 20s, 30s. So I think I've realised that it might be a sort of an annual thing in the lead up to comedy festivals. It's find venues, and just book my own show. And
so how, as someone that does at most, I think the longest set I've ever done is of just stand up being on stage would be like 14 and a half minutes.
Yeah.
Normally I'm doing 7 to 8.
Yeah, which is how everyone starts.
So I get to expend all of my energy and more so maybe focus on just what I'm doing for that period of time. Like, what's the adjustment like? Not just going up by double, but you're going from 7, 8, 10-minute sets, maybe as much as 20, all the way close to an hour in one jump.
Yeah.
Like, it's probably not as hard for someone like, for example, I just did 2 shows on the weekend with talking about someone who just murders, Luke Heggie. He might murder harder than anyone in the world. Like, it's just ridiculous at the moment how hard he was killing. Like, he probably normally does longer sets, and when he's headlining, he does 35, 40. So it's probably only a 10 or 15-minute jump for the festival for him. But what's it like for you to do that? Like, how do you pace your energy over that kind of period?
That's what I'm working on at the moment, I think. It's that jump, and then but that energy and that not rushing and that pacing is, I think Nick and I both talked about this. We both sort of have this issue at the moment where we're in that in-between phase where we've done the festival shows, done the hours, and done the 50 minutes, like you said, Josh. But I think it is hard because in my head, especially when it's new, when I'm doing untried gear and I'm trying to work the show out, you're in your head going, oh, this bit, what about this bit? And then I'm trying to work out callbacks and I'm trying to work out through lines. And then I look up and realize, oh, I've done 30 minutes and I haven't had a sip of water and now I can't breathe. So that's a big one for me. It's like, and Nick and I both agreed to this. It was like, just the audience are there for you. Like they're on your side. So just take a breath.
Yeah.
Like, so I felt both shows, I was still a bit rushed and a bit chaotic because I was like, oh, this bit. Okay, jump. I got to get to here because I want to see how this bit works after if I do this callback from,
Yep.
So that's where I'm at. I think, as I said, the framework's there, the idea of the show, and as the show's, I think we mentioned it already, the show's baby on board. So it's all about having a baby and that life change. So it's all there, and it's just,
and I guess there's, just from having watched many, many bigger comedians, probably more in the last, couple of years live than what I would ever have before that. There's certainly things that you can't do in a shorter set without it either seeming forced or contrived or that whole thing earlier was set up just to end the set on that callback. Like it's all doesn't feel as natural in a really short, condensed amount of time. But they're all the tools that actually work better, but also kind of need to be in a longer set to tie it all together. Like, that thing I spoke about 20 minutes ago, that was important because now we're here.
Yes.
Whereas in a short set, if you're just forcing stuff in just to do a callback 3 minutes later, it's like, oh, well, you just talked about that. Why wasn't that punchline just tagged on the actual joke?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, this is obviously why you're doing these shows, but how do you go out and practice something like a callback otherwise?
Yeah, well, because you gotta. I think and for me, it's just about, I guess, back, and this is where I've got to be better with my headspace around the whole thing.
Mm.
Is I think I found the closer in the callback.
Nice.
And I did try it on the Thursday show, the second trial show. But I also then felt like it was a bit rushed. Like you were saying, it was a bit sort of crowbarred in, because I was like a bit rushed. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do now? And the audience were great, because we set them up and said, this is a trial show. It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be messy. But then I think I lost a bit of the momentum of what this potential closing callback could be, because I was like, oh, I'll do this bit before I finish. And then but even the audience were like, oh, you're doing that to set up. We understand the concept of what you did, but because you're a bit stunted and a bit sort of all over the shop. So I think for me, once I've got sort of the middle of the show sorted out, it's funny because I think I'm at a point where I've got the start and the end.
Right.
But there's like 20,
the mushy middle.
There's 15 minutes in the middle that's in the wilderness.
Yeah, okay.
And it's a weird, because I'm like, but even that, I'm like, it's there. Like, I think the jokes are there, which isn't, whereas 3 weeks ago, I didn't think I had the material, whereas I think I have it, but I just need to figure stuff out, which is, and I think too, I'd say it was my third official festival show this year. And it, in some way or another, it does come together.
Yeah.
Just at this point, it doesn't feel like it will.
Yeah, I think it's funny with the callback thing. And what we mean by callback, to anyone who's not familiar, again, with the lingo, is referencing something you spoke about maybe as much as 15 or 20 minutes earlier as another bit of a joke, but sometimes people reference multiple things to tie different stories together.
Yeah. Which
I remember you did at the 2022 festival show. I think you tied together 2 previous stories from when you were a kid, and you were going to the Gate Lab in Melbourne, and then you tied that into a job interview story.
Yes.
And it was almost, some people would probably say, rewarding the audience for paying attention for an hour is like a hacky thing to do, but it was brilliant, and it brought the house down at least twice. I can remember when I watched 4 or 5 of those shows.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually kind of cool as an audience member to know that, I've been paying enough attention to this and I've been invested enough that I get what just happened.
Yeah, and I appreciate what just happened as well. And,
yeah.
And typically it is to close a show as well. That's what. I have seen it done. I have seen plenty of shows where there isn't a callback at the end.
No.
And that's completely fine too. But I personally love it. So the 2 shows that I've done, and now the third, I seem to have found a natural way to do it. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
And it was funny because my brother Felix, shout out Felix,
the brother who will be named on the podcast, regularly named Felix.
I think he does listen. Good on him.
Yeah, good on you, mate. Thank you.
He came to the first one and he said, I did this bit to sort of just finish up, not even like, and he goes, you did the bit to finish, but I was waiting for a callback to the other bit you started with. And you just didn't. He goes, I was waiting for it. I felt like I was sitting there, and you just didn't do it. And he goes, were you aware? Did you know? And then as soon as he said it, I was like, oh yeah. And then I tried it on the next show, but because I think I was still a bit rushed and a bit like, for me, it's pacing, calming down, and just knowing for 50 minutes they're there to watch me.
Yeah.
So whatever I do, that's.
And 99.9% of a comedy audience wants to have fun together, and they want it to be awesome.
Yeah.
They're not adversarial like a crowd that has to sit through the Dandy Warhols because they're waiting for System of a Down or Slipknot.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that kind of audience where it's a arms crossed, fucking prove it to me sort of audience. Everyone there wants it to be good, and they've almost got their fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yes, and when you got a nice crowd, and as I said, all these people were there to see me do it and Nick to do it. So I think we both had that good chat afterwards, and we're like, yeah, we just gotta, just relax a bit.
Nice.
And I think I've done it long enough now where when I'm having at my best, have my best shorter sets, as you've seen a few of them in Wagga and whatever. It's when I am just like up there, even if it is for 7 minutes. I am relaxed, so I've got to try and replicate that over 45 minutes or 50 minutes, which, as we said at the start, that's fucking hard. So
I guess that's why you do these shows, to know, okay, in the middle, not only is that joke not working, but it's more so I don't feel good about it. I've got to make it work to a point where I can feel good about it. Then hopefully it will just work even better.
Yes. Anyway, that's enough about my shows. You were in, as you did mention the great Luke Heggie. You did a run with him. Tell us about that, Josh. I mean, I know it's brilliant. But
well, Luke Heggie aside, who might be, as Dane said both nights, maybe the funniest comedian in Australia at the moment. And he's the funniest comedian I've seen probably in at least the last 12 months, other than Nate Bargatze. Yeah. So it's him and Nate, and then probably everyone else in terms of laughs. And so that part aside, we went to Tumut, which when people hear that, Tumut's a small-ish country town. I think some people there said there's 10,000 people there. Some of the other locals said there's about 6. So it's 6 to 10,000 people. So it's like a mid-sized town.
Up in the hills of New South Wales.
They've got a little bit of a different kind of culture because they're right on a really nice river. They're within striking distance of a 2 to 3 hour drive of your Canberras and a bit further to Sydney. And they have kind of what I would call like a folk music kind of tradition there as well, just because of the sort of town. So it actually feels more familiar to me as being like a Myrtleford or a Bright. If you're from the area where Ollie and I are from, they're pretty little alpine towns. That kind of feels a bit Tumutish. The crowd was great. The show started probably close to 40 minutes late because, like, it happens a lot and it's hard, but the venue just got slammed all at once by meal orders. So people turned up all within a really short pocket of time, all ordered food, but a lot of them were the people in the comedy room where there was no tables and there was no ability to have meals in there. So that kind of pushed it back so they could get through a few people in the dining room. And I think it would have still bothered some of the crowd a little bit, but it was also very, very hot in that room. And by the way, I just should preface this. The venue is amazing. I think it's Tumut River Brewing Co.
Yeah, I've done a spot there.
And the room looks awesome. And the stage that Dane and Eleanor from the Riverina Comedy Club set up looked absolutely amazing. It looked unbelievable in there, just the lighting and everything. So it was all set up. And the heat in there, though, because it was basically an outdoor shed area that's attached to the main building. And it would have been low 30s in there, still probably halfway through the show. So people have been sitting in there for a fair while. So I don't know if maybe Dane found it as easy to get him into it straight away as he normally would, but he just ground them down in the first few minutes of, hey, this shit's now starting. So everything that was happening, just ignore that. Just forget that.
Yeah, it's done.
It's done. And then from that point onwards, it was amazing. And I thought I did pretty well, except for one joke just went so far over their heads that it basically got nothing except a few people that like clued into what I meant. So I've spent the next 24 hours before Wagga, which was the next night, not thinking about how the show went, which was great for everyone, and not thinking about that 90% of my set went really well. But the 2 seconds of awkwardness when I ended a whole bit on a bit like that was going quite well and then ended it on a bit that didn't work.
Yeah.
I just obsessed over that for 24 hours.
I know that feeling.
So thank the comedy gods that Wagga happened the next night where I changed up a bunch of stuff. Probably the most I've ever changed a set full stop between 2 shows. I added like all these extra things that I've been thinking about and things I thought might work better going off what happened the night before. And I had one of what felt like probably my best set I've ever had.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, love that feeling.
The new venue, Thirsty Crow and Wagga, amazing. The setup, the audience, the lineup that night was really, really interesting in terms of styles of comedy. They were all very cohesive, but no one was really stepping on each other's styles at all.
Yeah.
And then Heggie came on at the end and just took it from, you know, a great show to a super memorable, absolute banger. So
yeah, he's similar to Nick in terms of styles, because I think they're both. Well, Nick's definitely deadpan, but Heggie's
Well, there was moments in Tumut I thought that people were going to need a break. He was hitting them that hard that often.
Yeah.
That they look like that they were like almost in pain.
Yep. Seen that too. That's it. Once the audience are on his wavelength, it's see you later.
And both nights they definitely were on his wavelength. And he's just got this hard to pigeonhole social political position where he can say one thing, you think he's coming from one angle, but it's not that, and then from the complete opposite side about a different topic, and then it's not that either.
Yeah.
And all those little things that he does where he says something, and then before the audience can even react, he says something else that's like contradicts what he just said.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so great. It's something I've never seen before. Like when he says, oh, blah, 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 you guys probably think this. And then before they even get a chance to think how they think, he's like, no, but why would you?
Yeah.
Like it's pretty much magic. And as soon as I saw him in Tumut, I'm like, I definitely have to find time to go to his festival show in Melbourne while I'm down there.
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, he's not in an accessible venue. So that sucks.
I thought he said he was when I asked him about that.
He might be. I haven't looked properly, but traditionally he's always been in the top of a pub in the city. That's not.
I think he said he might have been at the European Beer Cafe.
As far as I know, I don't know. I think that is not accessible.
Okay, well that sucks. But
I will follow that up because one year he did do a town hall show, like a one-off, and that was I went because that was obviously town halls.
I guess the best thing about the whole night for me was I'm a big Dave Kineen fan.
Yeah.
As much as he's hard to convince that he's actually funny, he's a very funny man and also just a great human.
And he's a lovely man too.
Getting to see him watch someone that he clearly looks up to.
Yeah.
But he's also become comfortable with as a human.
Yeah.
Maybe more than last time. That was also good to see. Like, oh, why not this guy I consider a mate. I won't say that it's the other way.
Yeah.
Dave's a complex human.
I think it is. Let's
say it is. Let's say it is for
Dave Kineen, friend.
Yeah, Dave Kineen, my friend, getting to watch someone who I would almost say is probably one of his comedic idols.
Yeah,
and getting to hang out with him, that also was kind of cool. Like, oh, these two people that are at different stages of their career that suit being around each other comedically also seem to get along well off stage.
Yeah,
that was cool just to see from like the sideline.
Very, very cool. But no, and it's weekends like that, and Wagga's done it for both of us before, the Riverina Comedy Club weekends. Where you get to the end, and you're exhausted because they've been amazing, and you're like, this is why I do comedy.
Yep.
Like we'll have some bin fires of gigs. And I've had that, especially in Melbourne now, where you're like, oh, what am I doing here? Like, I could have stayed home.
Yeah.
And then you go to a weekend, like, or you go, especially Wagga, and you go to the weekend there, and you're, this is it. Like, we've spoken about it ad nauseum on this pod in the 6 or 7 episodes already, how much we love Dane and Eleanor.
Strap in, everyone, because we're probably going to keep doing it.
Yeah, because you go to those weekends, and now that they're typically doing the 2 shows, you just get swept up in, and you're like, oh, this is the greatest.
The other thing that was great was, particularly in Wagga, everyone on the lineup did well, I think, in their own ways. Like, they appealed to certain people in the audience a lot, but to the whole audience, at least on some level. And not every show that I've been part of recently has had a general feeling of the audience is there as a group.
Yeah.
To, at minimum, enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
But most of the night it was more than that. They were fully engaged and they were giving everyone all of their attention. Yeah,
and I think that's as openers when we've opened for whether it's Wagga or other people, but especially at Riverina Comedy Club. That's all you got to do is that first half as openers.
Yep.
You've just got to hold your own and everyone's got to enjoy the show to that point. And then you've got the headliner, whoever it is. Like I remember this time last year, the February shows I did with Luke McGregor.
Yeah.
And same thing happened. Everyone, it was a great show until that point, and then Luke McGregor came in and did his 25, 30 minutes, and yeah, and then everyone left going, that was the best.
Yeah.
So I think too, that's when I've had gigs like that featuring for headliners, you just got to get in there and you got to get off, and people go, that was great. But
speaking of get off, before we get off this topic, there's one thing about Wagga I've realised that for me at my level, that is the pinnacle gig for me. And I got probably a different slot than I have had maybe the last 2 or 3 times in Wagga. I've usually gone either first or very close to opening. And I'm happy to do that. Like, I love being that because I'm, like, as Dane has said, a kind of slightly cleaner, gentler, like, introduction to the night. Hopefully I'm still funny, but I'm not going out there with the potential of offending someone in the first set. But I got to go, I think, 4th in the lineup, which I felt like was a bit of a sweet spot for me. And I just haven't had the chance to, I guess, be in that kind of slot in the Riverina Comedy Club shows. And that felt a bit differently. I could just go on, I guess, with slightly higher energy and just start. There wasn't any on-ramp.
No, it was just you're in, the show's kicking. Yeah.
Just get up and start talking. And try to make people laugh. It was good.
Yeah.
So that part was nice. But as I was saying, it's like I used to walk away from those type of shows, particularly the first time I did really well there, I think was with Jacques Barrett. And
also is an absolute murderer.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, if you track back over 2 years, he's probably still the funniest person I've seen. So unbelievable. That show I walked away from, and a few of the shows after that felt like, oh, I'm not doing very well. Or, oh, this isn't, why can't I replicate that? I hadn't worked out. Oh, that's because that's the special, unique thing. Most of comedy feels like this over here, where it's not that special Wagga Riverina Comedy Club audience.
Yeah. Oh, you mean from a like show
to show perspective. Yeah. Like, I've realised that you've just got to embrace the fact that that's extra special. Yeah. Not think that you're going to walk on to a show a week later or 3 weeks later and be able to replicate on, like, normally have a show that feels the same as that.
Because what they've got is this perfect, like, little, they've created this thing, this, like, organism.
Yes.
That is just, it's its own thing. And that's why you do the other gigs. So like I said, you have your 2 or 3 dodgy ones, or you have the moments where you're like, what am I doing this for? And then you go to that weekend.
Yeah.
That's why you're doing it.
Exactly. So we're pushing up on 40 minutes. So I just we're going to do a top 5. We'll probably make this a little quicker than our previous top 5s. So Ollie, do you want to just introduce the idea of the top 5? This was yours, and maybe you can start us off.
Okay. So my top 5 today is top 5 childhood breakfast cereals. I was a big breakfast cereal eater with my brothers and I as we grew up. So I thought top 5 breakfast cereals that I ate as a kid, and I always, just had a good time eating. So I'll start with number 5, and this might cop a little bit of heat. I don't know why. I just had the feeling when I thought about it, but I always loved Special K, and I didn't love it as a whole. But there's a specific thing I loved about Special K. All right, and this is why it's number 5. I love the last bowl of it in the box. So yeah, the as a cereal, the flakes are pretty bland, and you can with the milk it's fine. But the last bowl, when it's like a mixture of some whole flakes and then just straight up crumb, there's something about when the milk by the end of the bowl and it was just all the crumbs. And it was like some sort of weird milkshakey type thing. And I don't know, there's something about that last bowl. That's why it's number 5. I understand as a whole the cereal's pretty there,
Yeah.
but it's just what sort of bland flakes.
Yep.
That last bowl got always. I always tried to time it. If it say because I had said I had four, like I grew up with three younger brothers. It was four of us. So if like I knew we were at the back end of a box, I'd say to my brother like, "Oh, here you go.
You go first."
Knowing that okay, I'm gonna hit the last bowl and it's gonna all the crumbs and yeah. So that's my number 5. Number 4, I was trying to think back. I had Weet-Bix quite a lot. And there was something about, and I also had cereal after school. It was a big after school snack. So for me, Weet-Bix was, you'd come home after school and it's usually like, if it was a summer, I always remember summer days after school, and you'd have your Weet-Bix for your after school snack afternoon tea and the cold milk on, and just dry Weet-Bix with cold milk. Sometimes in the winter I'd have it with boiling water and then the milk. But I think if it was a summer version of the Weet-Bix, you'd have just the dry Weet-Bix and milk, and then the crunch, and it was crispy and crunchy the first few bites. And love the Weet-Bix. I think there's a bit of nostalgia in that too. I think classic marketing campaigns, Weet-Bix Kids and all that cool things. So that's number 4. Number 3 was Fruit Loops, because that was always a treat for my brothers and I. Mum did not buy that all the time, and she would only buy the small box. She wouldn't buy like a big value pack box because it's full of sugar and it's full of rubbish. Anything that's got multi-colors in it is not good for you. So we'd have the tiny little box, and then whenever it popped up, it usually, because Mum, it was on special, and then it would go immediately, because in those smaller boxes, it was 4 bowls worth, and being 4 of us, it'd be gone in one. We all sit there and we'd all, yeah. And it's a bit similar by the end of it, the milk was like, it became its own flavored. It was flavored by the Fruit Loops. And it was like its own experience. Yeah. Finishing the milk like post Fruit Loops.
Yeah.
So yeah, love the Fruit Loops, always will. Number 2, Crunchy Nut. Oh. I loved a bit of, it was basically cornflakes with like extra sugar and honey on them. And always loved them. It was just like, and again, by the end, the milk was like a honey flavored, just this, like it was a beautiful thing. Gosh, I loved a bit of Crunchy Nut. Yeah. And I still roll past in the cereal aisle, and I'm like, should I get some? And then, but with all these cereals, you realize that they weren't good for you.
No.
So I could get them now, but it's not going to feel the same as I felt when I was 12, because I can't digest things like I. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to feel ill. That brings me to number 1, and I'm talking about feeling ill and not being able to handle it. Number 1 for me was Nutri-Grain, and I love Nutri-Grain. Mum would get the big boxes, so we would have Nutri-Grain quite often, both breakfast and after school. And of course, famously, Nutri-Grain was the marketing campaign. It was Iron Man food. The Iron Men and women were sponsored by Nutri-Grain. And it was always the ads like, oh, it's Iron Man food, protein, carbs.
Yeah. And,
you're an Iron Man, eat this food, eat Nutri-Grain. So, yeah, I always loved that. And I remember the other day, this is speaking about going through the shops as an adult, the other day, I did have the urge to participate in a coastal endurance event. And I thought, what do they eat? They eat Nutri-Grain. So I went down to the shops and I bought some Nutri-Grain, and I ate the Nutri-Grain planning to compete. And turns out after a big bowl of Nutri-Grain and milk, the last thing you want to do is a bit of soft sand running and open water swimming. Turns out the only thing you want to do after a bowl of Nutri-Grain is have a nap for 6 hours.
Yeah.
So
and then wake up and do something else.
Then wake up and just really stare at the wall and wonder where your life's at. Yeah. But number 1, loved a bit of Nutri-Grain, but I do feel lied to by Kellogg's as a 10-year-old. So We need to figure that out. That's top 5. I will give a dishonorable mention to Cheerios.
Oh, yeah.
I don't understand what they were bringing to the table. I had a bowl with them
They
once.
weren't bringing cheer, I know that.
I was at a cousin's house for a sleepover, and they had Cheerios, and I had some, and I remember about the third mouthful, I was like, "What's happened here? What are you? I understand that Special K can be a bit bland, but like I had these weird flavors, and I just didn't know what they were.
Yeah,
like I just didn't appreciate it.
Unlike a Special K, I see Special K as almost like a platform that fruit, your yogurts, and other things can live on top of.
Yeah.
And once again, like we were talking about fruits in the past with PAVs, a solid PAV can elevate certain fruits.
Yeah.
Special K was elevated in and of itself by other types of dairy, particularly, and fruit. Whereas Cheerios, it just didn't have that platforming ability.
No, it was just the Greg's or the dreads of cereal. And I didn't appreciate it. Yeah, that's my top 5 childhood cereals. We're open to interpretation. I will admit Cocoa Pops aren't in there because I wasn't a chocolate guy. My brothers did love Cocoa Pops, but this is my top 5. So get stuck.
Hey, eat it. Okay, so I'm going to preface this by saying it because I had much older siblings and older parents than most of my friends. So I was essentially eating what I considered to be more adult cereals as a little tiny kid because that's what was in the house. So also, the only milk was full fat milk. That's what I'm talking about. Everything's full fat milk from a cow, not from a nut. Sugar was white and highly soluble. So even though I eat raw sugar now, if I do have sugar, it wasn't back then. It was as white as my skin tone right now.
Yep.
So number 5, and this was a great day when this happened. And this was also it was great the whole way down, but the last bowl of the box type cereal as well, Sultana brand, because it tasted great, in my opinion. But also back then, and probably still for a lot of people, farts are funny. And nothing sets me off, maybe other than like a hot cross bun, which has also got sultanas in it. Nothing sets me off like Sultana brand. And I always found it funny when I was going to swimming training because I'd be loaded up on sugary cereal and just farting in the pool. So number 4 was Rice Bubbles. And Rice Bubbles was my platform cereal. So by itself was okay, almost flavorless to a certain degree. Just loved sugar. Throw a pile of sugar on it and Rice Bubbles went to another level. Essentially, it was a sugar delivery device and I enjoyed it. So number 4 was Rice Bubbles. Cornflakes had what I thought was a better flavor, like in and of themselves. I liked cornflakes, and this is when I was saying like an adult cereal. My friends weren't eating cornflakes. It's just Dad had them. My older siblings were still at home when I was a really little kid. They were all eating cornflakes and Wheaties. I lent cornflakes because they were like a rice bubble, but it was flat and could carry more sugar. And I could still see the sugar, which for some reason tricked my brain into thinking, oh, this is even more sugar. This is great. So there's a common theme here, as you'll notice, about my childhood. Number 2, and this is where I realised that I was a bit of a punk rock contrarian kid. Wheat Bix, you can stick them. Even though that's what I love now, I was a Vitabrits kid.
Right, yeah.
I was pushing hard on Vitabrits, and I remember when I first started asking for them, I must have had them at a mate's house or something. My mum distinctly looked at me like, pretty much like, why do you want the inferior Brit? Like, why do you want that? Wheat Bix are better. And I just pushed hard for Vitabrits, and then I ate them for a couple of years until I realised Wheat Bix are better. But the thing about the Vitabrit for me was I Steph Curried the sugar. I tripled it. These were large. I was putting so much sugar on my Vitabrits that when I microwaved them in the colder months, the sugar would turn into like a swirl that looked like I was in a Bermuda Triangle. There was that much sugar in there. You could see the difference between what was still cereal and where the sugar was flowing into the center. It was bloody great. So those were all sugar related. Everything was about how do I get as much sugar in my body as I can. And for those who are wondering, I had at that point a 6-pack because I was swimming all day, every day, competitively. So I was burning it all off. But number one, and this was the unadulterated perfection cereal for me. It didn't need too much sugar or any. It would handle non-full fat milk. So basically that to me makes it a God mode cereal. And also I loved all the branding. I loved the color. And I loved that the milk would change and become a chocolate milkshake. Cocoa Pops.
There it is.
Every time I have a bowl now, because every once in a while, instead of buying some shit food, I buy a shit food in the form of cereal. And I eat it and it transports me straight back to some of my happiest moments.
Nostalgia. Love it.
But it's so good, Ollie. So good that I didn't have to put sugar on them to be able to force them into my body. As I said, unadulterated perfection. I could eat them out of the box like as a snack.
Yeah.
When they were baked into another food, like a brownie type situation, or they were baked into like a sticky thing. All the forms of Cocoa Pops I like.
All variations of the cocoa.
And I can't say that about rice bubbles. If you showed me like a rice bubble slice, I know, fucking tell you to go slice yourself.
Yeah.
I want Cocoa Pops in all the forms, and that's why it's my number one cereal.
That's great.
And I'm so happy you thought of this one because I didn't realise until I put this list together about half an hour ago
I did the same thing.
that I've got feelings about it. There's nothing better than a top 5 when you're why do I even have feelings about this?
Yeah,
it's a good thing.
I'm a 40-year-old man.
Yeah. But there's obviously a lot of food trauma that I'm still trying to deal with here.
Yeah, and I'm just glad you're still alive after all that the sugar that was just pumping through your veins.
Well, I've got to thank my dad on some level because he was an electrician and worked as much as anyone I've ever met, but also had the farm for the last part of my younger childhood. So he was tacking on an extra 20, 25 hours a week of more work, and he was burning through sugar like there was no tomorrow. So compared to how much he was putting on, mine then seemed like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of got away with what most parents probably wouldn't have let me get away with.
Yeah, and you're the youngest, mate. So you were
I was, and by that point, my parents a bit older probably weren't so much on the Josh, don't use a shovel in the sugar. Like I didn't even need a sandpit, Ollie.
Yeah.
Just give me the sugar bowl.
Yeah. And I'll just swim in it.
Yeah. I would have too.
Yeah. Well, we've gone long, but as always, good time, great time.
No, I think we're right in the pocket there, like Nick Schuler type pocket there, 50, 55.
Nick Schuler, Luke Heggie pocket of just yeah. So yes, but any feedback, any suggestions are welcome. Any top 5 recommendations, send us through your top 5, and we'll read them out on future apps.
Yep.
But we've had a few people come out of the shadows and have little darts at us, and I'm just saying, that come forth with the feedback.
Yep.
And we will embrace it, and we'll put forward your ideas. But I've had a few people now just having little pot shots, and I don't know how I feel about it.
Clearly, everyone knows now that if you present me first with a piece of Cocoa Pop slice. You could say anything to me.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you give me a bowl of Fruit Loops, I'll do whatever you need me to do. So, we love it, and we thank for the people that are listening. And we'll see you next time.
Righto. Okay, thanks, Ollie. Bye-bye.
Yeah.